82,000 hours. That is the exact terrifying figure representing the amount of time the average modern human will spend staring into the cold, artificial glow of a digital display over the course of a single lifetime. It is a biological paradox of staggering proportions. We are apex predators, evolved over millions of years to scan vast physical horizons for danger and prey, to track the subtle movement of shadows in the brush, to feel the wind against our faces. Yet today, we willingly confine our entire perceptual reality to a slab of polarized glass no larger than a deck of playing cards. Imagine the sheer silence of a darkened bedroom at midnight, the stillness shattered only by the harsh bluish-white phantom illumination radiating from a device gripped in a tired hand. The human pupil dilates, the retinal ganglion cells scream into the optic nerve, tricking the brain's circadian rhythm into believing it is high noon. Melatonin production violently halts. The sleep cycle is utterly decimated, but the user cannot look away. Let us tear down the blueprint of this quiet, invisible revolution, a subtle and total hijacking of human consciousness that did not arrive with the roar of military conquest, but with a silent, vibrating pulse in our pockets. To truly understand how we became so completely tethered to these glowing rectangles, we have to rewind the clock to a time when screens were strictly utilitarian, clunky glass cubes emitting harsh, jagged green text against a void of absolute, terrifying black. In the mid-20th century, early computing pioneers viewed the monitor purely as an output device, a necessary window to glimpse the complex mathematical churning of colossal mainframe machines that filled entire basement rooms with their deafening mechanical roar. There was absolutely no joy in looking at these primitive displays. The ambient hum of a thick cathode ray tube was loud and headache-inducing, the resolution was blindingly primitive, and prolonged exposure practically burned the fragile tissue of the human retina. At the end of the workday, operators would switch off the power, listen to the dying whine of the vacuum tubes, and walk out into the sunlight. The machine was a tool and nothing more. Yet hidden within a secretive research laboratory nested in the coastal hills of a western valley, a radical and ultimately dangerous shift was being engineered. A quiet faction of visionary industrial designers and cognitive psychologists realized that if ordinary humans were going to interact with complex machines daily, the interface could not just be a terminal of functional mathematics. It had to be magnetic. It had to be emotional. They methodically stripped away the raw code and replaced it with brilliant graphical metaphors. They introduced virtual desktops, little folder icons, and a cursor controlled by a mechanical mouse. It was a brilliant, albeit innocent, illusion designed specifically to make the cold logic of silicon feel familiar, tactile, and inherently human. Suddenly, the screen transformed from an intimidating barrier into a welcoming, brightly lit doorway. But doors swing both ways, and what passes through them cannot always be controlled. As hardware rapidly evolved from heavy, backbreaking cathode boxes to ultra-thin liquid crystal displays, and eventually to the absolute vividness of organic light-emitting diodes, the core objective of the hardware manufacturers fundamentally warped. The goal was no longer just to sell you a machine that helped you rapidly complete a task so you could walk away and enjoy your physical life. The entire economic model inverted. The singular goal became keeping you looking at the glass for as long as biologically possible. The engineers were no longer building simple tools for productivity. They were building inescapable digital habitats. The true, terrifying breakthrough in the architecture of infinite screen time was not a hardware innovation at all, but a psychological weapon deployed with devastating, microscopic precision. Let us dive into the deeply flawed mind of the modern consumer, specifically the precise moment when the technology industry discovered and weaponized variable ratio reinforcement. By the early 21st century, a new breed of social platforms emerged, built by brilliant but utterly ruthless coders who understood that human attention was a finite, rapidly depleting resource. To capture and hoard this resource, they borrowed heavily from the darkest corners of the casino industry. Think about the physical, highly tactile act of pulling down on a smooth touchscreen to refresh a digital feed. The glass is frictionless. The screen pauses for a fraction of a second, a tiny spinning wheel appears to build tension, and your brain instantly floods with a massive rush of anticipatory dopamine. You do not know what you are going to get. Will it be an entirely dull, irrelevant update, or will it be a highly stimulating piece of social validation, a notification that makes you feel loved, seen, and important? That microsecond of total uncertainty is the exact digital equivalent of pulling the heavy mechanical lever on a Vegas slot machine. This was not an accident. It was the deliberate, calculated result of thousands of hours of rigorous clinical behavioral testing. Designers scrutinized the exact hex codes of the color red used for notification badges, realizing through eye-tracking studies that specific, highly saturated shades of crimson triggered primal, evolutionary urgency in the human optical nerve, mimicking the color of blood or toxic berries. They completely eliminated the old concept of /pages entirely, engineering the infinite scroll so that there were no natural stopping cues, no physical end to the content to signal to the tired brain that it was time to put the device down and go to sleep. Your natural biological satiation mechanisms were systematically bypassed by lines of invisible code. If you're absolutely obsessed with decoding the psychological triggers, the hidden algorithms, and the invisible technologies shaping our future, hit that subscribe button right now, because we tear down manipulative systems exactly like this every single week, and you belong in our ranks. Now, looking deeper at the core algorithm, the sheer technical granularity of this retention machine is staggering to behold. Every single microscopic interaction you make on a screen is cataloged, weighed, and weaponized against your future self. The exact speed at which your thumb glides across the glass, the precise millisecond you hover over a specific high-contrast image before scrolling past, the time of day your eyes are most fatigued and vulnerable to suggestive, emotionally charged content. It is all gathered into a massive, constantly mutating shadow profile stored in servers thousands of miles away. Your screen is not just projecting light outward into the physical world. It is aggressively pulling your behavioral data inward. What was happening behind the closed doors of the world's most dominant digital empires was a covert, high-stakes arms race for human consciousness. While massive public relations campaigns touted the glowing screen as a miraculous tool for unprecedented global connection and human unity, the hidden reality was a highly optimized, multi-billion-dollar extraction operation. Inside windowless, fortress-like server farms spanning across frozen Arctic tundras and barren, sun-scorched deserts, hyper-advanced supercomputers churn through exabytes of human behavioral data to perfect the dark art of the backslash hook. Imagine the physical scale of these facilities. Aisles upon aisles of blinking black racks, roaring with the deafening sound of industrial cooling fans, burning through enough raw electricity to power entire metropolitan cities, all dedicated to calculating precisely which 30-second video will keep you from putting your phone back in your pocket. The top-tier engineers building these very systems often enforce strict, ironclad rules in their own affluent households, forbidding their own young children from looking at the very screens they were programming for the global masses. They knew exactly how toxic the recipe was because they wrote the ingredients. A secretive, cutthroat collective of invisible data brokers arose in the shadows, trading human attention like crude oil on automated, real-time bidding exchanges that operate at the speed of light. When you casually unlock your device on a crowded train, you are not stepping into a harmless public square. You are stepping onto a hyper-aggressive, invisible trading floor where your eyeballs are the primary commodity being auctioned off to the highest bidder. The algorithms dictating what populates your screen are specifically coded to outrage you, to frighten you, and to titillate you, because internal corporate metrics proved long ago that negative emotions and tribal friction dramatically increase user linger times. It is a cold, mathematical certainty that an angry, terrified user is a highly engaged user, and an engaged user prints money. The entire global economy quietly shifted from selling tangible, physical goods to monetizing microscopic fractions of a second of human focus. Internal documents, carefully concealed by corporate legal teams and locked away in digital vaults, eventually revealed that these tech monopolies were fully, undeniably aware that their products induced severe clinical anxiety, completely disrupted rapid eye movement sleep cycles, and structurally altered the vital neuroplasticity of the developing adolescent brain. Yet the invisible code continued to iterate relentlessly, growing more aggressive, more targeted, and more inescapable with every software update. The physical world was being actively, deliberately hollowed out to feed the ravenous appetite of the virtual one. Today, the devastating legacy of this engineered screen time is etched directly into the neurological wiring of our entire species. The average human attention span has been violently compressed, fractured into hyperkinetic, disjointed 15-second bursts of digital stimuli. We have completely forgotten how to be bored, eradicating the exact mental state where human creativity and profound philosophical thought naturally germinate. We suffer heavily from phantom vibration syndrome, a terrifying neurological glitch where our exhausted brains falsely fire alert signals, convincing us our pockets are buzzing when absolutely nothing is there. We have cultivated an agonizing, inescapable dependence on the artificial glow, routinely prioritizing hollow digital validation over genuine physical presence with the people sitting right next to us. The screen is no longer an object we occasionally consult for directions or facts. It is a permanent appendage, an artificial organ grafted onto our consciousness. It is the absolute mediator of our entire reality, dictating how we form our core memories, how we fall in love, how we wage wars, and how we perceive the very concept of objective truth. Looking toward the horizon, the glowing rectangle is already mutating into something far more invasive. It is actively moving from the palms of our hands directly to our faces, integrating seamlessly into our field of vision through wearable, transparent optics, promising a terrifying near future where the fragile boundary between the physical environment and the digital overlay completely and permanently evaporates. The bitter war for screen time that defined the last 2 decades was merely the prologue to a much larger conquest. The next phase is total, inescapable cognitive immersion. We stand at a profound, terrifying precipice in human history, staring deeply into the black mirror that we crafted with our own hands, wondering if we still possess the primal willpower to look away. The story of screen time is not just a tale of remarkable technological triumph and unprecedented engineering. It is a stark, blinding warning about what happens when we blindly surrender our most precious, irreplaceable resource, our finite time on this earth, to machines specifically designed to consume it without an ounce of mercy. But awareness is the ultimate, most powerful rebellion available to us. Understanding the precise, invisible architecture of your digital cage is the first and only real step toward breaking out of it. If you refuse to be a passive, compliant consumer and demand to know exactly how the hidden, microscopic gears of our technological world actually turn, join our rapidly growing community of fiercely curious minds by hitting that subscribe button right now. Keep questioning the systems explicitly designed to control you. Aggressively reclaim your stolen focus. And never, ever forget that your attention is your ultimate power.